Exxon scientists were aware of the threat posed by fossil fuels as early as 1977, 40 years ago. That's according to a 2015 investigation by Inside Climate News. Nevertheless, the company purposely chose to emphasize uncertainty about this issue. And since it merged with Mobil in 1999, ExxonMobil, it has spent tens of millions of dollars on a climate disinformation campaign that continues to this day. Now, the federal judge in this case on the West Coast, Alsup, concluded that the courts are not the proper venue to address climate change or climate damages, given the U.S. Supreme Court has ruled that the Environmental Protection Agency has the authority to regulate greenhouse gas emissions under the Clean Air Act. The judge in this case, Alsup, contends the issue is best left to Congress and the Trump administration to handle. Oh, God. Alsup's conclusion presents us with a catch-22. Yeah. Kicking any decision about curbing global warming emissions to the political branches of government ignores the fact that both Congress and the current administration are tightly tied to coal, oil, and gas industries, and that hand-in-glove relationship is largely due to questionable Supreme Court decisions. The genesis of our predicament, now this is interesting. The genesis of our predicament can be traced back to the early 1800s. Industrial Revolution, I guess. Since then, the Supreme Court has issued a series of rulings that have granted corporations the same rights as people. More recently, in 1976, it ruled that limits on campaign contributions violated the First Amendment, essentially equating money with free speech. And in 2010, the Citizens United case, the court ruled that the government cannot limit a corporation's independent political donations. So all those decisions, it's very obvious, have enabled the fossil fuel industry to exert undue influence over federal energy policy. Not only have coal, oil, and gas companies collectively spent tens, if not hundreds, of millions of dollars over the past few decades to manufacture doubt about the reality and the seriousness of climate change. They also have spent considerably more on campaign contributions and lobbying to stymie efforts on Capitol Hill to combat climate change. They're doing this to us for money. You do understand that. This has nothing to do with anything except money. In the 2015-2016 election cycle alone, for example, the 5 defendants in the San Francisco-Oakland climate change case together spent $10 million on federal candidates and another $58 million to lobby Congress and the administration, according to government data collected by the Center for Responsive Politics. Have you got $68 million where you can pay off these leechy fuckers in the Congress, these dirty bastards that are supposed to be there representing their home congressional district? Isn't that a joke? Is that a fucking joke or what? Only it's not funny, because the result of that joke is death, destruction, disease. The senior writer for the Union of Concerned Scientists is concluding this. He says, our 3-branch system of government ostensibly rests on the concept of checks and balances. When Congress and the executive branch are hopelessly corrupted by petrodollars, it is incumbent upon the judiciary to compensate for this imbalance, which utterly fails to serve the public interest. Fortunately, Judge Alsup's ruling is not the last word. Similar climate change lawsuits have been filed by cities and counties in California, Colorado, New York, and Washington State. A recent press statement by the Union of Concerned Scientists, President Ken Kimmel, puts these lawsuits into perspective. This is what he said, quote, "In almost all large impact litigation, the courtroom doors are usually shut in the beginning, but if plaintiffs are persistent and keep knocking, the doors will open up. This was true in the fights against Jim Crow and Big Tobacco, and we expect that the same tenacity will be necessary to overcome the entrenched political and economic influence of this deep-pocketed industry." End quote. Now, the guy I just quoted, Ken Kimmel, he's the president, Union of Concerned Scientists. He's an attorney and former head of the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection. And the article I just pretty much gave you word for word was written by Elliot Negan, senior writer at Union of Concerned Scientists. And his work has appeared in Atlantic Monthly, Columbia Journalism Review, The Hill, all sorts of publications. You know, if you pay close attention, this is true in my case. I'm not, not sure about you, but if you pay close attention to the horror that is our political situation right now, the emotion that it evokes in me is rage, almost uncontrollable rage. And I usually deal with that rage with intense exercise, which had to come to a stop for about 4 months while I dealt with this spinal bullshit. And then that lovely little 4 days in the hospital last week. Woohoo! But, I'm getting back into the exercise regimen now. And if you're not exercising, if you're not really pushing yourself, I don't know about your physical condition, blah, blah, blah. Make sure your doctor knows what you're doing, all that stuff. But if you're not pushing yourself physically, how are you dealing with the political rage that I know you've got to be feeling? Or maybe you're just capable of processing it a lot better than I am. It gets stuck in me. I don't know how to release it. So I go swim it off. And pretty soon now, once this healing continues, I'll go back to walking. And I guess my running days are over. They weren't all that. I didn't do that much running anyway, but I guess those days are pretty much gone. But swimming and intense walking are excellent forms of exercise. Better for you than running, as a matter of fact. But the emotion that is evoked in me, and this one, I don't know how exercise works with this one, because so far it doesn't work with me. The emotion that is evoked in me where it concerns the destruction of life on earth is profound sadness. I don't know how you short-circuit sadness. To me, the only way that sadness can be ameliorated is to prevent the thing or the things that are making you sad cease. Now, in so many instances, that's impossible. When a loved family member dies, you feel sadness. And the only thing that's going to help you through that one is time. But when you look around and you see, as I do, and I'm sure you do, this incredible destruction, this dying, this die-off that's occurring, and you realize that it's, if not stoppable, it is slow downable. We could be doing something, but what are we doing? Just like the mountain gorillas in the Democratic Republic of Congo, in the national park there, the largest one in that country, the park that contains half of the remaining living mountain gorillas is now going to be opened up to oil companies.